We can report now that they're out. All 12 boys and their coach have been freed in that incredible rescue mission in the flooded cave in Thailand.
So it's 10:20 at night here in Australia, and I was just heading off to bed, and I noticed when I was looking at a Facebook that there was a notification that said 2 of the boys have been rescued completely from the cave, which is mind-blowing considering that they were potentially going to be in there for 4 months. There are reports of a 3rd and 4th, but they are unconfirmed. Reuters has confirmed 2. I've been looking online at a couple of things, and there's been some really interesting videos being uploaded. This one, which I'm not sure where it's from a news source, but they basically show you exactly what the rescue is going to be like and exactly how they went into the cave when it was completely dry, and now it's been flooded, and then about 120 million litres of water has been pumped out. So they've managed to lower the floodwaters enough, not as much as they would like, and they've set up all these zones to get the boys through. The width of one of the caves that is filled with water is the length of 3 Mars bars. Now that is insane. That's so small. And then I found this clip online which gives you an idea of how they're actually going to try and get through that gap. Well, they've gotten through that gap, which is crazy. Now, the reason why the boys have just had this sort of rush evacuation, it has been well thought out and it has been well planned. And they've said they have to do this now because literally in the next 16 to 24 hours, there's going to be 100 mils of rain. It's a really heavy downpour, and they think that it might just flood the cave beyond rescue at all. So that's why they're sort of really pushing for this to happen. Now, 2 of the boys have apparently flown to a hospital where they're being checked. This is all rumour at the moment, but it's being reported that they are okay. So we've still got another 11 to go. It's probably safe to assume that the 2 boys that have been rescued are the 2 strongest ones. So the risk is going to really come toward the end of this rescue to make sure that all these boys are going to get out safe. But I'm so relieved. I just had no idea what to think. Just the sheer difficulty of this dive, the fact that these boys can't swim, they've never scuba dived before. It's so great that 2 of them are out, because it just goes to show you that this can be done. And I'm just nervous about the next few hours. So it's now 10:50 at night. I think I'm going to head to bed. The last reports I've read are 4 boys are out, including the coach, someone said. I don't know how true that is, but 4 boys, safe and sound so far, which is a great sign. So hopefully I'll wake up in the morning and everything will be amazing. The whole team will be out, the divers will be safe, and it'll be good news. Oh God, fingers crossed. So it's now been 24 hours since we last spoke. The rescue last night finished when it got dark in Thailand, and then it resumed this morning, which was about midday, I think, Australian time. And so now I can report that another 4 boys have been rescued from the cave, which means there's 4 left in there, and their coach. So I assume things will finish up now. The 4 boys will be out, and then they'll do the next 4 and the coach tomorrow. Fingers crossed. What I found interesting about the last 24 hours is someone tweeted Elon Musk about a day and a half ago, before the rescue attempt sort of got rushed in and they started removing these boys out. And he was like, oh, let me get my engineers to work on a solution so we can get these boys out. And within the turnaround time of about 8 hours, he developed this submarine contraption looking thing, and it was just like, it's like a giant silver cylinder that the boy essentially goes into, and they get sort of bolted in. It's so terrifying and claustrophobic and awful, but I think it's a relatively decent solution. And it's this tiny cylinder which will fit in the cave, and which will be able to be pushed through and be able to taken through the difficult terrain, basically. So if the boys couldn't swim, this was a great solution. So it was quite quite a nice progressive gesture on his behalf. The thing looks so terrifying. There is no way you could get me into that. I would just be like, I think I'll just stay in the cave. Like, it's so scary. Great. Good on him for trying. He's doing 50 times more stuff than I'm doing than just talking about. He's actually doing something to help, which is really nice. Oh, it's very scary. And in a tweet, he was like, well, we could probably use it as an escape pod on SpaceX. Can you imagine getting into that and then just escaping out into space in that? Where would you go? How would that even work? It seems as though diving and getting them out that way has worked perfectly fine. So it's fingers crossed that the next 4 and the coach can get out safely. So it's been a further 22 hours. It's now 8:40 on Tuesday. And, oh my God, I'm so excited. 11 boys out, officially out. Apparently the 12th boy and the coach are in chamber 1, which is the final chamber, which is like they've gotten through the hard part of it now. So fingers crossed that means everyone's out safely. Then we've just got to get the divers out and we're all good. I tell you what, I've literally been glued to my Twitter feed for the last 72 hours. What happens after being trapped in a cave for 10 days? Eyes. Immediate exposure to light could permanently damage the retinas. Oh my God. Lungs. Poor air quality in cave can cause disease. Digestive system. Weight loss, malnourishment. Eating food too quickly can cause a heart attack or organ failure. And skin. Loss of pigmentation, susceptible to infection because of damp environment. From what I've read, the boys that are in hospital haven't been able to be in contact with their parents because they're so afraid that they'll pass on some disease or they'll get infected. So they haven't actually seen their parents yet. And I did read somewhere that FIFA said they wanted to take the whole soccer team, the Wild Boars, to watch the grand final of the World Cup. But unfortunately, because they're so weak and they're so prone to infection, they won't get better in time. I mean, they need like gold passes or platinum passes to the World Cup. Every 4 years, they need to be front and center at every grand final. It's worth noting that the weakest out of everyone is said to be the 25-year-old assistant coach, who a lot of people are blaming this whole thing for. And yes, he was the eldest and he should have been more responsible. There was a warning sign in the cave that said, be cautious during wet season, and it is wet season there. Obviously, he didn't think anything like this would happen. The boys were excited for this trip. But the report is he's actually the weakest out of all of them because he's given up a lot of the food that they did take on the trip. He rationed it for the boys. He had the wherewithal to huddle them together, to stay warm. And basically, he was teaching them how to conserve energy through meditation. One of the boys' parents is quoted as saying, if he didn't go with them, what would have happened to my child? When he comes out, we have to heal his heart. My dear Ek, I would never blame you. Oh, it's so emotional. Ek, who is the assistant coach, lost his parents when he was 10 years old. And he trained to be a monk. Hence why he was teaching them to meditate. He knew how to conserve energy. He knew how to survive. And sort of, he really took charge. And I think he really looked after these boys. And I think credit to him. He managed to keep them alive for 10 days without food. He didn't panic. He taught them how to meditate. He got them through this whole ordeal. And then it was really then up to the divers in order to get them all out. And that's what's happened. And it's I cannot honestly believe that everyone of those boys and that coach got out alive.